Okay, so basically with Supreme Darkness coming out, we've got this new water fish shark boy Poseidra the Storming Atlantean, which by the way is just a second copy of Prince. Now we can run 6 copies of him, as well as the new Golden Girl ABYSSTRITE the Atlantean Spirit, and she's a really cool card that lets you play old trap cards like ABYSSPHERE again. She's kind of drowning. I don't know why mermaids or mermaids can drown because they've got gills, but that's besides the point. Not only does she search trap cards, she also as another copy of Abyss Sting of Train to look at that card. And then in tandem with both this card, that card, and this card, you're able to kind of cycle through so many infantries, and your opponent's board is kind of going to look like this at the end of the day. It goes without saying that these are probably the strongest Mermail cards we've gotten in recent history. I mean, yes, we also got some really good cards in Rage of the Abyss, but Supreme Darkness introduced our best Xyz monster and our best main deck enabler. It kind of rivals the power of Neptibus, the Atlantean Prince, in terms of just how good this card can be going first as well as going second. I mean, just look at it. This is a really cool card and I really like him, and I'm going to show you a combo real quick using both of these new cards to kind of get an idea of how you can use them when playing the deck. So the combo I'm going to be showing you today is just off of Neptibus the Atlantean Prince. It doesn't require any other cards in hand, and this ends the turn with this card back in your hand. Let me show you how that works. You're going to normal summon your Neptibus, use his effect to go ahead and send off a copy of your Shadow Squad to the graveyard to then use its effect. Actually, we're going to use Princess first here to add a copy of Dragoons from our deck to our hand, and then use the Shadow Squad's effect to go ahead and summon out a copy of Abyss Pike. Use Abyss Pike's effect on summon, discarding our copy of Dragoons to go ahead and copy a Abyss Shrine to our hand, to then use your copy of the Atlantean Dragoons to add a copy of Mullen Glacia. From here, what you can do is use Abyss Shrine. You're going to tribute your Prince to go ahead and add a Mermail Abyss from your deck to your hand, and then use the Prince's effect to summon out your Dragoons from your graveyard. Next, we can go ahead and Xyz summon onto a copy of Bahamut Shark, and then use your Bahamut Shark's effect, detaching a copy of the Dragoons, to go ahead and special summon out our first copy of Totally Awesome to the far right zone. Next, you can use Prince's effect to go ahead and add that copy of Poseidra. This is the new Atlantean card, and we aren't going to use his second effect here or his first effect. The main part of this combo was just to get him into your graveyard so you can revive him with Prince later, and then this lets you use his effect to dump an infantry, to bounce a card, and then destroy a card. Going second, you'd kind of be using him as a starter alongside Prince to just kind of blow up an opponent's board using only your engine, while also getting enough cards into motion to kind of OTK your opponent that turn. It's a really cool card. Next from here, we can go ahead and use Mermail Abyss Teus' effect to special summon himself from her hand, discarding our Atlantean, to then use Teus' effect to add a copy of Mermail Abyss Gund from our deck to our hand. Next, we can check our graveyard, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, to go ahead and drop Mullen Glacia to the field, and then taking 2 cards out of our opponent's hand, leaving them with like, what, 3 cards in their hand or something. And then you can use Teus plus the Bahamut Shark to go into a link summon of Mermail, Marincess, Coral, Anemone. They're all just Mermails in my mind. They all just kind of work out. From here, you can use Coral Anemone's effect to special summon out the Mermail Shadow Squad from our graveyard, to then use this card's effect, discarding our copy of Gund to make both of these level 7s. Then you can use Gund's effect here to go ahead and revive your Pike that is in your graveyard. Next, we can Xyz summon that new Mermail ABYSSTRITE, the Atlantean Spirit. It's not a Mermail, it's an Atlantean. It doesn't really matter. On summon, she has a really cool effect that you can target 1 Aqua Sea Serpent Fish that's level 7 or lower in your graveyard and special summon it. So you can summon your Prince, you can summon your Rhine, you can summon your Dragoons, you can summon your Poseidra, you can summon your Teus, you can summon your Gund. Lots of different options. She's really good, especially getting this card onto the field, especially if your opponent has a card in field, to then start nuking stuff and shuffling stuff back. But in this particular combo, we're going to target the Dragoons to revive it. And then lastly, what you can do here is use her second effect, detaching a material such as your Shadow Squad, to go ahead and set a Mermail Abyss trap from your deck. We're going to be setting Sphere here because you're going to want to use this to special summon a Pike from your deck, to then use the Pike to discard the Prince, to then revive the Poseidra during your opponent's turn to blow up your field, their field, as well as sending an infantry to blow up another card. So we're going to set the Sphere right here. Then we're going to overlay the Pike plus the Dragoons going into our second copy of Bahamut Shark, to then discard the copy of the Atlantean Dragoons, to go ahead and special summon out our second copy of Totally Awesome. Then using Dragoons' effect here to go ahead and search for a copy of Heavy Infantry from our deck to our hand. Next, we can Exceed Summon on top of the ABYSSTRITE a copy of Poseidra Abyss. I just love how this deck just works so well together. It's so well designed, these new 2 waves of support, and I'm just incredibly in love with this deck. Next, from here, we can go ahead and link off the Coral Anemone, the Poseidra Abyss, and the Bahamut Shark, going into a Link 3 Mermail King Neptibus. From here, we can use Poseidra Abyss's effect, discarding our copy of Heavy Infantry to go ahead and target the Heavy Infantry, target the Shadow Squad, and then target the Abyss Rhine that is in our graveyard to special summon them. I believe these are the proper zones, although I could be wrong. This doesn't really matter a whole lot, but anyways, because we discarded a water monster to activate an Atlantean or Mermail effect, we can go ahead and use Neptibus's effect here, as well as the infantry because it was sent to the graveyard. I don't know if it missed times or not, but it is a mandatory effect. It doesn't really destroy anything because your opponent doesn't have any cards, but we're going to add the Triana from our deck to our hand. Then we can go ahead and overlay the Shadow Squad with the Rhine, going into an Xyz 3 Lavirtue Dragon. And it doesn't really matter too much where we put the Lavirtue Dragon because we're going to link it off anyway, so let's just go ahead and put it to this zone. On summon, what the Lavirtue Dragon is going to do is search for a copy of Virtue Stream. What this is another form of interruption that is basically an Icarus attack by tributing a water monster, destroys 2 of your opponent's cards, and then you can banish this from your graveyard to protect one of your things from destruction. It's a really cool card. So we're going to go ahead and set the Virtue Stream, doesn't matter what zone, let's just set it right here. And then we can use the Virtue Dragon's effect right here to detach a copy of our Abyss Rhine to target an Aqua Sea Serpent fish in our graveyard, such as Dragoons, and add it from our graveyard back to our hand. Next, we can use the Heavy Infantry to get the additional normal to normal summon our Atlantean Dragoons. Link off the Lavirtue plus the Infantry, going into a copy of Mermail Abyssalacia, using the Triana to go ahead and go back into our graveyard to special summon a copy of Abyss Pike. And then you can Exceed Summon the Abyss Pike plus the Dragoons. You can go into a copy of Dweller. It's kind of overkill, but my favorite card to summon here is going to be Bahamut Shark. Then you can use Bahamut Shark's effect, detaching a copy of Dragoons to go into your third Totally Awesome. Then, because we sent a Dragoons to the graveyard to activate a water monster's effect, you can use the Dragoons' effect to add that Neptibus from our deck to our hand. And this is the board you're going to end on. It's Triple Toads, it's Neptibus the Mermail King, and Abyssalacia, a Prince back in our hand, 2 set traps that both do something to interrupt our opponent, 2 cards removed from our opponent's hand, and then we have a Rhine in the graveyard to discard a water card to draw a card, as well as the Poseidra setup. I think this is a pretty strong end board. Yes, it is extremely over the top, but that is what water kind of excels at. So if you guys have any ideas of where you guys want to take this, absolutely kind of tailor your builds of your decks to your liking. There is no one cut and dry way of playing this deck, so kind of go wild, explore this to your heart's content. Just know that I don't think any deck can play through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then of course the 7/8 forms of interruption if you put this infantry back into your hand using one of your Totally Awesomes to discard off the Alacia. And of course I say Neptibus because if you are playing both copies of the Abyss spells, you get extra negates, but they're really unnecessary at this point. This deck does way too freaking much. But yeah, you've got Triple Toads, and it explores this kind of deck using Poseidra, a really cool sea serpent, as well as using the new ABYSSTRITE, another really cool sea serpent. So yeah, if you guys haven't known yet or aren't already aware, Mermail is my favorite deck of all time. So if you guys enjoy what you see and would like to see more, please consider subscribing as well as hitting the like button. Thank you. All right, bye-bye. This is just so much. So many cool new cards with Poseidra, with the ABYSSTRITE. Look at her. She's the golden girl. She's our golden girl. We love her so much. And I mean, I guess he's pretty cool as well. I just like summoning 3 toads out. That's kind of my gimmick.